I guess I'm probably one of your more different sort of podcast interviewees. So my background is in ocean sailing. So I'm actually the first woman to sail solo around Antarctica with one stop. And I set another record sailing solo around Australia. So most of my international traveling has been done by boat.
As a woman, why you start to traveling all around the world with a boat?
I fell in love with the romance of the ocean, and there's nothing quite like sailing from country to country and literally just having the wind to power you, and you have to figure it out and make it work and get yourself from point A to point B safely. And I think one of the things that I love about traveling and sailing um, and traveling through this direction than by flying from country to country or backpacking is that you get to visit places that most people don't actually get to visit because you're going to very small little port towns. You're very far from the main tourist destinations, so you really get to connect with the culture in the locations you visit. I don't think as a woman's, like for me, had a big difference in it. I think maybe in the sport of sailing, being a woman can be a little more difficult because there's less opportunities to get on ocean-going boats. But for me, I've managed to make it work, and I've had an incredible adventure, and I've been to some remarkably distant, beautiful places, and all by boat.
And the first day that you want to do something like that, what did you have in mind in your mind? I mean that you just think about something new, or you always love to be in an ocean and something like that.
So for me, I actually didn't start sailing till I was 22. So I got a job for my university holiday break
Mhm.
as the cook and the cleaner on a charter yacht in the Whitsunday Islands. And I just fell in love with the adventure lifestyle, the sun, like you get to go snorkeling and swimming and sailing, and it was just like heaps of fun. And so that was sort of my first introduction into sailing. And then about a year later, I had the opportunity with some friends, and I was invited to join a boat sailing from Samoa to Hawaii.
Mhm.
So I joined that boat, and I'd never sailed across an ocean in the dark, like nothing like that. So I really didn't know what to expect. It was an unplanned trip. Somebody needed a crew member, and they asked me if I could come and fill that position on a boat, and I said yes, and a week later I flew to
Everything is
Samoa.
start.
Yeah, and I just loved it. Like we went to there's this island in the Pacific called the Kiribati Islands. There's a group of them, and there's one island out of that called Canton Island, and it's a US owned island, so
Mhm.
no one lives on it except the US government pays some of these Kiribati Islanders to caretake the island. So you rock up to this island, which is like a little atoll in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of nowhere. It's thousands of miles from anything else. And you're greeted by these people on this beach. And there was 28 people completely. That was it living on this
28?
island.
Really?
28 people,
Oh.
eight, eight adults and 16 children. And that was it. The whole island. There was one school teacher, one police officer, like one cook, like, and that was
Oh, that's so
it.
interesting, I
Yeah,
think.
so they do like these
Unique.
2-year contracts and live in this island for 2 years and get paid by the US government to caretake the island. So you get to see things that are so unique and different that you wouldn't normally see if you went on a tourist bus or, caught a plane somewhere and landed there and followed the main travel. So so it's all sort of growing from there.
Yes, and what is the best inspiration for starting this plan for you? Do you have someone to inspire you to start? Because I know that it's so hard to sail as a woman and also alone in a ocean and something like that. Do you have anybody to inspire you?
Yeah, definitely. Good question. So I when I came back to Australia after sailing to Hawaii with that trip, I was given some books to read on solo sailors by another sailor, and they just lent them to me, thought I'd be interested in reading these stories. And I started sort of reading about these other adventures that people had had, from Kay Cotty and Jessica Watson and Robin Knox Johnson, and these incredible solo sailors out there, from guys and girls. And I just fell in love with the concept of, when you sail with crew, you've got, 10 people on board a boat. So you've got 10 people that you can rely on to help you if you're having trouble with something, or
Yes.
to help you fix something if you don't know how to fix it, or,
They
whereas when
gave
you're
you
solo,
energy in a bad situation also.
yes, yeah, and they help you. You're a team, right? Whereas solo, it's just you.
Yes.
So there's this sort of extra challenge that goes along with that, where as it's just you, like, you have to figure out how to fix things and how to make it safe, and how to survive in the ocean. And I think by reading these stories, all of these stories, I started to get really inspired by their journeys and their adventures. And that led me to want to try solo sailing myself. As you've mentioned, like, being a female sailor is not easy in the industry. It's still very male dominated sport. There is a lot of change happening around that in Australia, specifically to make it more gender neutral as a sport. But also, where I was in my sailing career at the time, I didn't think I would get a lot of opportunities to learn the things I wanted to learn about, like fixing things and diesel engines and marine mechanics and all this other stuff you've got to learn about. So I decided that by doing it solo, I have to learn it, because I'm the only one on the boat. So it was a way of me becoming a better sailor for myself, but also testing me and trying to figure out, what's next.
Yes, and so great because you figure all the problem, and I think that in this way you grow more and more. And if you didn't something like that, you never grow such this thing.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I've really learned, and this is something that a lot of your listeners would probably maybe haven't learned yet or would relate to, is that when you start achieving things, so like I sailed around the world with crew, we raced in a yacht race around the world with crew. And I remember it was a whole year of my life racing this yacht around the world. And we visited 15 different countries, and it was this incredible experience. And I remember thinking to myself when I finished that trip, like, just inspiring myself as well, because I realized I was capable of far more than I realized. Before I left for that trip, I'd never sailed across an ocean. I didn't know like anything. And then here I was, and I've sailed around the world. And it made me ask myself the question of, what else am I capable of? What else is possible? And that sort of led me into the solo sailing. And then when I did my very first trip solo sailing, which was Australia to New Zealand and back again, which is quite a big challenging part of the ocean to sail. And it was a fairly big trip for anyone to take on solo for the first time. But I completed the trip, and it was a battle the whole time. Everything possible that could go wrong went wrong, as happens with traveling. And I just remember finishing it and just thinking that was exactly what I wanted. Like, it tested me, it pushed me to my limits, it made me stronger, it made me more resilient, and a better sailor. And so I've gone on to do, Antarctica and Australia and all these other records since then, but it's getting that sense of achievement.
And how you figure out with the broken boat?
Yeah, that's not a small story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's the hardest part for you during this plan, yes? Or you had it before that?
No, I'd never suffered a dismasting before that. And it was a really violent scenario. Like, I almost died multiple times that night. I was 1,000 nautical miles from land in 8-meter waves. So imagine a 3-story building in storm conditions. So really strong winds, like howling through, ripping off the tops of the waves. And it's nighttime, obviously, because nothing bad ever happens in the daytime. And
yes, always the night.
always the night. Yeah, so it was a battle to survive, but the only way I could survive was to cut the rigging free of the boat and keep the boat floating. So I had to cut away the rigging wire, which took me 4 hours, and I was hypothermic by the time I finished that, and covered in bruises and, you know, waves the size of houses that are crashing into the boat. They just try and rip you right off the boat, like try and tear you off the deck.
Mm,
So, you know, I was very fortunate to have
yes.
survived and to be able to be here telling the story. And yeah, it was quite traumatic. I've actually just released a book about it late last year called Facing Fear, and it's about that circumnavigation and dealing with the dismasting and all of that. So yeah, it's quite the story.
Yes, and also audience Lisa have a book as she told, and she explained everything in her book. Yes, about
Yes.
your fear.
And you can buy the ebook now as well. So you can get it all the way over there. There's an electronic copy on the website, which you can pick up at lisablairsalestheworld.com.
Yes, thank you. And what is the biggest fear for you to start such a this plan?
I think one of the biggest things people underestimate with fear is the fear of like getting started.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think like you can come up with all sorts of ideas and you can have hundreds of different ideas, but it's choosing to get started and commit yourself and say, yes, this is what I'm going to achieve. That like is a big fear for a lot of people. And for me as well, it's very challenging to mentally go, okay, I'm committing 100% to this target. And I'm going to make it happen and figure out how to make that happen from there. So I think, you know, sailing in the Southern Ocean solo, it has a lot of risks.
Mm-hmm.
Sailing solo in general has a lot of risk. You know, there's
Everything
no
has a
one
lot of
else.
risk, I think. Everything.
Exactly. But I could die in a car accident next week. And you know, I'm out there, I'm doing amazing things. So I try not to let my fear of those moments stop me from achieving what I want to achieve. I think the biggest thing that people underestimate is self-doubt or self-belief. You've really got to believe that you're capable, that you're going to be able to succeed, that you can see the finish line before you've even started, and you know that you'll cross that finish line before you've even left port. So I think that's really, really important for people committing to a goal and facing fear in different situations.
You never think about something like that. Is the I mean that you never think about, is this the best time that you should start something like that or not? You just go and you just start.
I don't think that there's ever a perfect time to start something. You know, everyone is very, very good at saying you'll start it tomorrow, or you'll start it with New Year's, or you'll start it on Monday next week, but there's never a perfect time to start something. So I think obviously people have different life commitments. Some people might have children or families or, you know, work commitments and things like that. And obviously most people aren't going to go and sail solo around Antarctica. But that shouldn't stop people from still trying to challenge their goals and challenge themselves. And, you know, maybe somebody's goal is to go traveling on their own for the first time.
Mhm.
And there's absolutely no reason they can't do that. They just have to work out a safe way to travel when they're traveling on their own, and hopefully COVID goes away. So, yeah, I think that's, I don't think there's any perfect time to start something. So you might as well just get started.
And
Yes.
what's your idea about this sentence? How Lisa Blair become Lisa Blair as a first sailor?
How did Lisa Blair become Lisa Blair? Well, for one, I was born with a given name of Lisa Blair, so I became Lisa Blair when I got my name.
Yes, no, but such a person that
I
that's
know what you
yes.
mean. um, I think life's
You
journey,
can answer me, my mom and dad. And
yeah,
this
yeah,
name
yeah.
for me.
Um, I think for me, there was plenty of opportunities where I could have said no and not done it and quit and given up. And every time that someone said they believed in me or they supported me, whether it was my family or my friends or complete strangers, it got me through those times. And it's those moments that shape you into the person you are. It's when you don't quit and you don't give up and you don't, decide that it's too hard, so you're not going to try. Those are the moments that define me. So yeah, I think that's my journey. Every time I wanted to quit and I didn't, that's what shaped me.
Yes. You are the first woman sailing all around the Antarctica. Do you have any regret about something in your work? I mean that.
Um, so not really, because even when I broke the boat and I dismasted and I was no longer eligible for the men's record,
Mm,
I still set a world record as the first woman to do so. But also the other thing that scenario gave me was it really gave me a lot of confidence that I can deal
mm,
with the emergencies. Because before that, they were all just these things that you would think about, but you wouldn't actually know if you could survive them. Whereas now I'd been through one of those scenarios and I knew I can survive it now. So I think that as bad as that situation was and as potentially regretful as that
mhm,
situation was, there was a lot of learnings that came from it and confidence building. So I wouldn't say I regret that
mhm.
happening. Um, it was an unavoidable situation. So I think that would probably be the closest aspect. The only other thing I would say is like the kind of records I do are very expensive. And I haven't managed to secure all my
Mo-
funding for every trip. So I'm getting a lot of debt racked up from doing the lots of records. And so I would like to be able to do it with confidence without having to go further into debt. That would be something I'd like to avoid in the future.
Yes. And do you have any suggestion for women in all around the world?
Just in general,
Yes, in general, as a someone who start to do something new, and for all women in all around the world, because you know that we have violence for women in all around the world,
yeah,
and all the women should figure out with different situation, with different problem in each
yeah,
country. Do you have any suggestion for those women?
yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing I've learned about achieving what I've achieved and doing what I'm doing is that when I was a nobody trying to do my first record, almost everybody told me it was impossible. It couldn't be done. I'm a girl. I'm not strong enough. Why should I try that? It's too dangerous. Um, and I would get guys that had never even contemplated challenging something like this telling me that my boat was too big for me and I wasn't strong enough. And the best piece of advice I think I can give to women in general is know your self-worth and know that you're always strong enough. If you really believe that you can do it, then you can. Like you just have to do it. And when you get that negativity or the naysayers or the people saying that you can't, just remind yourself that you've already got to this point. You already traveled so far and they don't know who you are. They don't know your story. They just see you as a girl and they don't see anything else, all the hard work you put into what you're trying to achieve. So believe in your own ability to succeed in what you set yourself as the goal.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa, for being in our show. I know that I and also our audience can learn from you and can start to do something that love to do before, but we scared to start it or we have fear because we have all the people have fear in their life, and the important things in this way is to figure out. And thank you so much to share your story. I know that your story can inspire lots of people in all around the world.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
And
welcome.
all the best. And I hope everyone enjoys the podcast.
Thank you so much. Have a good time. Bye bye.
Bye.